My name is Paloma, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation on art analysis. At least that's what I thought. I was going to do this whole thing where I, wore a French beret, and I was going to act like you interrupted me while reading my favorite art book, and I was going to invite you to have a coffee with me in this whole virtual space that I created, but turns out that none of that ended up happening. My technology just did not work out with me, so I hope you don't mind dealing with stick figure me for now. But the conversation was essentially going to be, what artworks do I deem culturally significant? And I would tell you they're obviously The Tragedy by Pablo Picasso and The Two Fridas by Frida Kahlo. Duh. Oh, you don't agree with me? You don't agree that these two are the best ever? Fine. Then I'm just going to have to explain it to you. Let's start with the Picasso, shall we? Pablo Picasso's The Tragedy explores the universality of human suffering and instigates the feeling of curiosity within the viewer. Painted in 1903, Picasso's painting depicts a family by the seaside on a gloomy day. There is distance between the mother and the father, both physically and emotionally, as the pair are standing apart from each other, creating a space between them, and neither of them are looking at each other because their tragedy is too overwhelming to comfort one another. The child feels this distance and touches his father's side in an attempt to comfort him. After seeing all this, the viewer can't help but ask, what is the tragedy? The answer is both layered and simple. The reason why there aren't any specific details in the painting is to give your mind the opportunity to wander. Could it be the loss of a child, the person who should fill the gap between the parents? Is it a tragedy so universal it runs through the couple, but the child who lacks emotional maturity doesn't know how to process it? Or is it the fact that the couple cannot comfort each other in a moment they both clearly need it, that in itself is the tragedy? Regardless of what the true answer to this is, this painting evokes a sense of empathy in the viewer and a desire to resolve what's lying within, therefore instigating the universal and innately human instinct to comfort. The thick and harsh lines on the family deepen the emotional standing of the painting, while the softer lines detailing the background fade to make the family stand out. The painting itself is layered, meaning Picasso used this canvas for previous works before completing it with The Tragedy. He was known for this tactic, saying every layer of a painting has meaning, and the freshest layer was inspired by the one lying beneath it. Picasso believed that paintings are living things and undergo metamorphosis through every stage they go through, much like humans do. He purposefully left hints of previous works within his art. In The Tragedy, you can see cracks of hues of orange and yellow, which do not correlate with the main work. The Tragedy was created during Pablo Picasso's famous Blue period from 1901 to 1904, which started after Picasso got news that a friend of his had committed suicide. During this 3-year period, Picasso explored the different scenes he could use to describe the color blue, a color that describes a wide variety of emotions, from serenity to depression to trust and loyalty. Picasso definitely plays with all these emotions in The Tragedy, one of the only works taking place by the ocean, a place associated with renewal and washing away of past emotions or fears. The ocean is calming and also scary because it is deep and mysterious, much like The Tragedy is. Picasso's masterpiece is the epitome of human suffering and the universal need to empathize, as characterized by the dark beach landscape and the human behavior exhibited on the forefront. And now, something completely different. The Two Fridas by Frida Kahlo, 1939. To understand the layers of Kahlo's piece, it is important to fully explore what was going on in her life at the time. In 1939, Frida Kahlo was married to Mexican muralist Diego Rivera. The two stayed married through various infidelities on both sides of the marriage, and after 10 years of marriage, they got a divorce. The Two Fridas is a response to Kahlo and Rivera's divorce, and the emotional toll it took on Kahlo. In the painting, we see two renditions of Frida Kahlo. For the purposes of this analysis, when talking about the figures in the two Fridas, I will refer to them as Frida. When I am talking about the artist herself, I will refer to her as Kahlo. The Frida on the left is dressed in traditional white Tijuana dress, an outfit she is known for wearing because she loved celebrating her Mexican heritage and identity, a statement inspired by Rivera, therefore representing the woman she became through their relationship. And the Frida to the right is wearing a modern dress to signify a Kahlo that just wed Rivera, or the old Kahlo. Both Fridas have their heart exposed and seem to have a vein connecting the two. The traditional Frida has surgically cut one of her arteries that is feeding into the portrait of young Diego that the Frida in the modern dress is holding, implying that she has severed ties between the man she once loved, her livelihood, her heart. This Frida is reborn, although through pain, and this is signified by the virginal white in her dress and the deep, passionate red in her blood. The fact that the heart's vein is open and dripping onto her dress, implying that she might bleed to death, also alludes to the open wound metaphor, a traumatic experience that needs to heal. Both Fridas have an exposed heart, but one is weakened by it while the other emerges stronger, a sign of the ability to love and how exposure to love can leave you either vulnerable or resilient, as well as a way to show the viewer her emotional suffering. Kahlo was devastated after her divorce with Rivera, and she painted this self-portrait as a reflection of the divorce on her psyche, and as a response to the portrait she made of her and Diego in 1931 as a wedding portrait. It is easy to know the similarities between the two Fridas and Frida and Diego Rivera, but the most notable similarity is the fact that the figures in both portraits are holding hands, a symbol of companionship. Although Kahlo and Rivera didn't have the typical marriage, above all, Kahlo viewed her husband as a great comrade. And when they divorced, she lost her closest friend. In her diary, she would later confess that when she and Rivera divorced, she felt great desperation and loneliness being apart from him. This feeling is reflected in the version of Kahlo to the left in the two Fridas, a Frida with a dismembered heart, slowly losing blood and the life and love she once held. But Kahlo wasn't just sad, she was frustrated and full of inner conflict. Her frustration and turmoil with herself are further represented in the background of the portrait. Stormy clouds are often used to symbolize disturbed or agitated states, something that was true for Kahlo, as she debated whether or not the divorce was healthy for her and if she could endure the pain of being without Rivera. It would later be proven that the pair couldn't live without each other, and the two remarried in 1940, the following year. Kahlo's The Two Fridas give us insight into a tumultuous period in the painter's life, and ultimately tell a compelling story about love and loss. The vulnerability and emotional weight of both the tragedy and the two Fridas are culturally significant because both of these painters, who were friends with each other, were brave enough to explore the depths of human feeling and suffering, whether it is in a fictional space like Picasso or in a self-reflective state like Kahlo. Thank you.